Hey everybody, how are you all doing? Hope you're well. Your semester is wrapping up nicely. Hey, I wanted to talk with you just a little bit today on the notion of integrating a picture, an image, a chart, a graph, something like that into one of your essays, into your revision process. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to show you a sample research paper. This one isn't actually in our textbook. This was in the last edition. So if you try to call it up in your ebook, you're not going to see it. It was in an older one. I don't know why they didn't include it in our new one, but another one of my complaints about Norton's textbooks. But anyway, this is an example of a similar paper that you all have written, right? It's kind of this one's a kind of a paper talking about Harry S. Truman's election of 1948. Harry S. Truman, you remember him, right? 33rd President of the United States, Harry S. Truman. By the way, here's a trivia for you. Do you know what the S stands for in Harry S. Truman? Harry S. Truman? It is the letter S. There is no middle name. It's the letter S. Anyway, so here is an essay here on Harry S. Truman, and as you scan through this essay, you are going to see there is an image. There is an image, right? This very famous picture of Harry S. Truman in the middle of his essay, right? See that? There's a picture in the middle of his essay. And this is going to be one of the things you're going to be, or that you are asked to do as part of your major revision process. It's going to be you're asked to insert or integrate an image into your essay. I'm showing you this old sample research paper because it's a very good example. Again, it's unfortunate that it's not in our new textbook, but this one will work just fine. So there's like three steps, and you'll see it on this week's assignment. I've kind of articulated those three steps, but I wanted to give you kind of a better example here, kind of showing it to you graphically. There's three steps to integrating an image. The first one is, as you look through this essay, the first step is in the preceding paragraph. That is the paragraph right before the image. So as you're reading the paper, right, it's talking about Harry S. Truman, the election of 1948. And in this case, there's kind of a weird sort of a scandal where a newspaper edition came out and said that somebody else had won the election. Thomas Dewey, right? It was a very famous thing. And so there's a newspaper that came out, and Truman is holding up this newspaper where it claimed that the other guy actually won the election. Kind of a very famous picture. Anyway, the preceding paragraph talks about Truman holding up that newspaper. So you can see in the preceding paragraph, it kind of explains what's down here in this image. The results of the election are not easily predicted, as is shown in the famous photograph in which Truman holds up a newspaper proclaiming Dewey the victor. Fig 1. It's very important. Fig 1, kind of like see figure 1. Fig 1. Okay, and then the rest of the paragraph kind of goes on to talk more about, the significance of this picture, the significance of the election, and on and on. And you'll be doing the same thing in your paper, right? So if you show an image of, say, I don't know, a like I don't know, it could be like you know, cancer research or something like that, a picture of a hospital setting, right? It'd be the same kind of thing. The paragraph preceding the image will sort of explain that image, and then you'll say somewhere in there, figure 1, kind of directing your audience to look down here at figure 1. Then, of course, there's the picture or the image, and then you're going to see figure 1, right? This kind of tells you that here's figure 1. Obviously, it matches up here, figure 1. So, by the way, you might imagine if you had a long paper, maybe like 10, 20 pages, and you had maybe three or four or five figures. It might happen if you're in school for a while and you write longish papers. You might have more than one figure. If you do, of course, the second image would be figure 2, figure 3, figure 4, and so on. Anyway, so here so you need this caption. I told you there's three steps involved. The first step is the preceding paragraph. The second step is this caption underneath it. You're going to start it with figure 1, And then you're going to explain in your own words just kind of a sentence or so that explains what that image is. So in this case, this image is President Harry S. Truman holds up an edition of the Chicago Daily Tribune that mistakenly announced Dewey defeats Truman, right? Just a simple little caption explaining what this image is. And obviously, the reason for that is you don't want your audience to try to figure out, okay, so what is this image here? Is it an image of, a guy in jail? Is it an image of, somebody suffering from Alzheimer's? I mean, what is this picture of? And here you're saying that President Truman holds up an edition. Okay, there you go. And at the end of the um, caption, you're going to put a source acknowledgement. This is similar to a citation, but it's a little bit different than what we're used to, right? We're used to citations that look like this, right? Kind of a name and a page number. We're used to seeing things like this. This one's a little bit different. You'll notice the formatting is a little bit different. It's the name, by the way, it's first and last name, and then maybe one or two other things that sort of identify what it is. It might be, the magazine. It might be the name of the book or the name of the article. It might be the year, but you're only putting like one or two things that identifies where it came from. I know that's kind of confusing, um, but that's kind of how the citation or we call it a source acknowledgement works in an image. So, so we have this now, the paragraph, of course, the image, the caption, and now, so you see the citation here, or the source acknowledgement, this Rollins and where it came from. And then at the end, right, so think of this kind of as a quote. So now at the end, you're going to come all the way down here, and as you might imagine, here in the works cited list, you're going to see something from a guy named Rollins. And here it is right here, Rollins, and this is where you got your image from. So you might have the same sort of thing, right? So if you got your image from one of your articles, then of course that article would be listed up here. If you just kind of randomly got your image from somewhere else, just make sure you acknowledge it and cite it, just like you would a quote. Okay, so that's kind of how you do it. So I'm going to show you something else here. Now you might hear a couple of little pauses and stuff in this recording. That's because I have to shift now to a different semester. But let me get back to our class here real quick. So give me one quick second here. One quick second. Okay. So now we're back here, and now what I want to show you is I'm going to give you kind of another example of maybe an article we're using, that we are using. So imagine that this is an article. This is one of the articles. Maybe you, maybe I, maybe one of us. We did our exploration paper was on how technology, social media, things like cell phones, smartphones has affected, young people or something like that. So this might be one of my articles that I'm using. This one right here. This is a fabulous article, by the way. This is by a lady named Jean Twenge. It's called Has the Smartphone Destroyed a Generation? It's a really interesting article, by the way. If you ever actually have a chance to read it, I highly recommend it. Anyway, so this is an interesting article, and I'm going to use this article. Again, you guys are going to do the same kind of thing. I'm going to use this article and I'm going to find an image in here. Maybe I'll use that image. See if I can find another one. I think I'm going to use one of these images actually. Because this has some pretty cool graphs and stats and stuff that talks about how, at least in my case, how young people have been affected by the use of smartphones. Right, you can see some cool graphs here. We won't necessarily get into the article, but what I want to do is I want to use one of these graphs and use this image, one of these images, into my revised paper that I'm working on. And when I'm done, it's going to look like this. One second again. It's going to look like this. Okay, so this is my exploratory essay. And you'll see some highlights in here. Ignore the highlights just for 1 second, but you'll see this is just kind of this probably looks very familiar to some of you. And here are the exploratory essays you've done, right? It starts with the introduction, the thesis, the interview stuff. Well, way down here, I have and write all the citations, all that kind of stuff. Well, way down here, and again, ignore these highlights for right now. But way down here, you're going to see that image that I just had a second ago. Remember that image from that article? I decided to use this one. And in the preceding paragraph, and we talked about that before, so the paragraph right before this is what I put. And that's not all. Studies have shown that young people, particularly those in eighth grade and above, do not spend as much time with their friends as they once did. This trend also began around 2007 when the iPhone was released. See figure one. So, of course, here's figure one. Coincidentally, this was around the same time that my younger brother Gary, this is what sort of my whole essay is about, became more and more alienated from his friends and did not hang out with them nearly as much as he once did. So again, the point is the paragraph preceding the image is effectively explaining what the image is about. Okay, and then here at the bottom, again, the caption underneath, there's Fig 1. It matches this, Fig 1. What is Fig 1, Figure 1? Well, it's a graph that shows the downward trend of teens, especially high school age teens, no longer hanging out with their friends, right? That's exactly what this is. You want to make sure you have that caption in there. And then my source acknowledgement here is just, right, I just have a couple things in here, Twangy. Actually, I should have the first name in there. I kind of messed that up. It should be Gene Twangy, first name, last name, and the publication, Gene Twangy, The Atlantic. And then if you come all the way down here at the end, you will, of course, see that name down here in the works cited list. Okay, so that's kind of what you're going to be doing when you integrate a quote integrate an image into your paper. So now if we go to this assignment itself, let me see if I can find it here real quick. 1 second. Okay, I think I paused it. Anyway, hopefully you can see this screen here. Hopefully you can see that screen. Let me just make sure. My Zoom skills aren't that great, as I know you all know. So here you will see in Module 13, where we are this week, you will see an assignment that says Revision Integrating Image Practice. And this is our assignment for the week. So again, it's going to say, for this assignment, you're going to practice integrating an image, photograph, chart, graph, or other related image from one of the articles from your exploratory essay. And I give you those steps that you're going to need, right? Write a paragraph that makes clear how your image relates to your point. When referring to the image in your text, see Figure 1. Directly underneath the image should be a caption that explains what the image is. Begin with the notation Fig 1. At the end of the caption, make sure you provide the source information, right? Just like I explained. And I have an example here of what you're going to need to submit for this project. You can kind of see it there. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger so you can see it even better, right? And this is kind of what you saw. And by the way, you'll also see that the longer the entire essay in the course content for this module, right? So here's the paragraph above, the image itself, the caption underneath it, and then the works cited entry. So if you could put the works cited entry in there, that'd be great. So that is what this source integration is like. So you're going to need what source, geez, I keep saying source integration, not source. Image integration is going to be like for your revision process. So you're going to need to integrate an image as part of this revision process. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Certainly, if you need any more need any help on that or have any more questions, I know it gets kind of complicated and tricky, but I'm certainly always happy to help, as you know. So give me a call or text me or email me, drop me a note, and I will be happy to help you with that. All right? You guys have a great week, and I will talk with you soon.